We like to believe we are the masters of our own destiny. We build grand cities. We crown all-powerful kings. We write laws that we think will last for eternity. But what happens when the sky itself turns against you? In ancient China, supreme power was not just about commanding massive armies or hoarding gold. It was about something much more terrifying. It was about controlling the rain. Imagine being an emperor. Millions of people bow to you. They call you a god. But deep down, you live in absolute fear. Because your entire right to rule, your very survival, depends on the weather. Thousands of years ago, humanity looked up at the sky and saw chaos. During the dawn of Chinese civilization, nightmare events ravaged the earth. The sun vanished behind strange yellow fogs, and ice froze the ground on summer mornings. Ash rained down from the heavens for 10 straight days. The people were consumed by a deep psychological terror. They needed an explanation for why their crops were dying. They needed someone to blame. And so, they created the ultimate political trap. They called it the Mandate of Heaven. The philosophy was dangerously simple. The right to rule was not a permanent gift. It was a conditional contract with the universe. If a king ruled with justice, morality, and virtue, the heavens would smile down on the earth. The rains would fall on time. The harvests would overflow. But if a king became greedy, if he became corrupt, the heavens would withdraw their mandate. Disasters, famines, and floods were not just bad luck. They were divine warnings. They were proof that the king was illegitimate and that the people had the right to overthrow him. Fast forward to the glorious Han Dynasty. For centuries, the Han emperors enjoyed absolute power and unimaginable wealth. But they built their golden age on a hidden illusion. For over 100 years, the Chinese heartland was blessed with a rare, highly unusual climate anomaly. It was incredibly warm, and rainfall was heavy. The empire boomed, not just because of great leadership, but because the climate was perfectly suited for farming. Enter Dong Zhongshu. He was a brilliant philosopher who stepped out of the shadows to make the cosmic contract official law. He created a theory called heaven-human resonance. Dong Zhongshu argued that the emperor and the cosmos were biologically and spiritually linked. The universe was a moral mirror. If the emperor was cruel, the cosmic balance was shattered and the earth would suffer. It was a genius strategy for the scholars to keep the arrogant emperors in check. They used this philosophy to pressure the throne. Every time a comet appeared or a river flooded, the politicians would point their fingers at the emperor and demand he fix his moral failings. But nature is not a moral judge. Nature is a beast, and the beast was about to wake up. What the Han emperors did not know was that they were sharing the earth with invisible monsters, volcanoes. In the year 43 BC, a massive volcano called Okmok erupted thousands of miles away in Alaska. It blasted millions of tons of sulfur into the stratosphere, wrapping the northern hemisphere in a veil of dark ash. The skies over China turned strange and terrifying. In the middle of summer, the sun turned a ghostly pale blue, casting no shadows. The air grew freezing cold. Frost destroyed the wheat fields before they could be harvested. A massive famine swept across the empire. Desperate people died in the dirt. But under the philosophy of heaven-human resonance, the people did not blame the volcano. They blamed the emperor. The true nightmare arrived in the late 2nd century AD. The Han Dynasty was already rotting from the inside out. Emperor Ling sat on the throne, a weak puppet manipulated by a greedy faction of palace eunuchs. They hoarded the nation's wealth while the peasants starved. And then, the climate delivered the final, fatal blow. A cluster of massive volcanic eruptions shook the globe. The sun dimmed again. The crucial life-giving monsoon winds failed. Brutal droughts choked the farmlands, turning rivers into mud and crops into dust. The empire was financially bankrupt. To survive the crisis, Emperor Ling did something unforgivable. He began selling government offices to the highest bidder. Rich, corrupt men bought power with millions of coins. To make their money back, they ruthlessly taxed the starving peasants. The poor were squeezed for every last grain of rice. Desperate families abandoned their homes, wandering the roads as starving vagrants. Disease ravaged the fractured countryside. The cosmic contract was broken. The people looked at the dry, cracked earth, and they knew the truth. The emperor had lost the mandate of heaven. From the ashes of starvation rose a mystic healer named Zhang Jue. He looked at the suffering masses and gave them a terrifying prophecy. He told them the time of the Han was over. He launched the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Millions of broken, starving farmers tied yellow scarves around their heads, marching into the jaws of war. They screamed a battle cry that would echo through eternity. The azure sky is dead. The yellow sky will soon rise. The azure sky represented the fading Han Dynasty. The yellow sky was the new, pure era they demanded. The peasant army swept across China like a hurricane of vengeance. The Han Dynasty fought back, slaughtering the rebels in the millions. But the damage was done. The mighty Han Dynasty, which had ruled for 400 years, shattered into pieces. The empire fell into the bloody, chaotic abyss of the Three Kingdoms period. You would think history would learn its lesson. But human arrogance is a stubborn disease. More than 1,000 years later, the great Ming Dynasty made the exact same mistakes. During the 17th century, the Earth plunged into a terrifying deep freeze known as the Little Ice Age. The climate turned violently cold. Massive blizzards buried the normally warm southern provinces. Snow crushed the trees, and wild birds froze to death in midair. Then came a devastating 10-year drought. The mighty Yellow River, the lifeblood of China, actually dried up. The agricultural heartland produced nothing but dust. The psychological toll was unimaginable. Starvation drove the peasants mad. To survive, people ate grass. They ate the bark off trees. And eventually, in the darkest corners of the empire, they ate each other. Once again, a dynasty crumbled. Not just because of foreign armies, not just because of political mistakes, but because a frozen, starving world cannot support the weight of an arrogant crown. The rise and fall of Chinese dynasties is a psychological tragedy written in the clouds. It is a story of mortals who believed they were gods, only to be crushed by the true ruler of the world. We build our empires of glass and steel. We convince ourselves that we have conquered nature. We forget the ancient wisdom of the mandate of heaven. But the sky does not forget, and when the climate shifts, the bill always comes due. History is never a closed book. While this chapter fades into the ashes, the echoes of antiquity still shape the present. Choose your next journey into the shadows and let the pursuit of truth continue. Another path awaits right here.